Hey everyone, just want to talk about some of the super matches coming up on the 2025 Armbender. Let's not waste too much time and get right into it. So the first match is going to be RJ Harrold versus Dan Grosulak. Um, I train a lot with Dan over the years. As a matter of fact, the first probably like 6 practices, he was like one of the only people that was there. So I have a lot of experience pulling Dan. RJ, I've only seen a little bit. I know he's good. He's a new guy, very strong. He's going to be one of the best probably in over the next couple of years. But right now, I think Dan is just he's just going to be a little bit too much for him. I think all of Dan's fundamentals are just going to be a little bit stronger. It is right-handed though, and the thing about Dan is his right hand is really inconsistent. So we'll see what version shows up. If it's one of his better versions, then I think it'll be a pretty easy win. I see it being probably 3-1 to Dan. I think RJ might be able to pull off a surprise pin maybe first round, but then after that, I think Dan's got it. The next match is going to be my match versus Dalton. I'm not going to talk about that. There's other people out there who've talked about it, and I do have a game plan, but obviously not going to share it. The third match is going to be Nathan Johnson versus Robert Petley, left-handed. This is a pretty interesting match. Stylistically, I would have to go with Nathan. Just because even though his left arm is not as strong as his right arm, by a pretty wide margin, his movement patterns and his ability to stay tight is just significantly better. And from what I see of Petley, his big strengths are his ability to crush with the grip and just pull straight back, like lots of back pressure, lots of containment. But he does look like he gasses fast. And Nathan, from what I've seen, does not. So, again, I think it's another one that could potentially be 3-1 with Robert pulling off a round one win. But I think, Nathan's a true arm wrestler. He's not a hobbyist arm wrestler like Robert. So I'm hard-pressed, even with Robert's strength. Robert is a very strong guy. I'm hard-pressed to see Nathan losing over multiple rounds. Alexander Groot versus Jake Houston, fourth match before the first break. That's an interesting match to me. Jake Houston, on paper, is obviously, not one, not two, like 3 tiers up over Alexander Groot. Alex is strong. He's a new guy. I see his gym lifts often, and his numbers are progressing quickly, and they're getting up there in terms of where you want him to be competitive. But Jake is, I don't think he's ever pulled anyone like Jake. Jake Houston is going to not allow Alex to access any of his power. And I just see, there's just no way I see this being anything but a shutout. So yeah, I have Jake Houston winning with no losses, but I would love to see Alex prove me wrong and do something. Even if he can even get in the match, if he can stop Jake, that would be a pretty big accomplishment. So after these first 4 matches, we have a 3-minute break, and then we're going to go into the next set of matches. The 5th match is one of the more interesting ones to me. It's Sam Gittlein versus Weston Teppo. Both people I have experience with. Weston and Sam essentially want to do the same things. Just the way they go about it is a little bit different. I see Weston more favoring side pressure and his cup just to pull in from a static position. But Sam's a person who's going to come forward and really sink that hook in deep, and he's really good at it. Like, in my head, I have them pretty close strength-wise, honestly. And I think that for at least one round, it'll definitely be very, very back and forth or just a deadlock somewhere. And I know that Weston has good endurance. And I'm told Sam does too, but I don't know firsthand because I just don't have a lot of experience with him. So we'll see how this one goes, but I think this is going to be one of the more interesting and potentially probably the closest match of the night. So, match 6 is another really good one. Dustin Finley versus Nathan Johnson. So Dustin Finley is a real special guy. He's brand new. Well, I don't want to say brand new now, but I think he's only coming up on a year, or might not even be quite at a year by the time the armbender starts. But he's just so strong. You know, he beat a former world champion a few months ago at Armsgeddon without his hand. And from the B side, he's just strong enough that he kept his arm closed, he maintained his pronation, and he was able to just pull straight through. And I don't know that I've ever seen a new guy do anything like that with someone. I believe his name is Len Houghton, something of that nature. But he's a former world champion, amazing top roller, very experienced. Not an easy opponent. And Dustin, man, endurance, power, strength, pull through. And never had his hand. I don't think he had his hand a single match. And seeing all his training, his hand has definitely gotten stronger. But why this is interesting is Nathan is also a pretty special guy. He's going to be giving up a lot of weight in this match, a lot of weight. I think he's around 220 right now. Towards the end of last year, he was only like 200-ish. I remember he competed in the 198s, so he was much smaller, coming back up in weight. But Nathan is very strong. If he gets inside, very, very, very strong, and he very rarely doesn't get inside. And this is going to be the biggest problem for Dustin. This is why I'm so excited to see if he's increased his versatility. Because where Dustin typically pulls, where he gets into that pressing is typically very weak against inside pullers, hookers like Nathan. So if Dustin pulls the way Dustin normally pulls, he's going to be going right into Nathan's strength. And Nathan is a low hand hooker, which is actually potentially even better for him because instead of using a little bit of time at the start to come up, his hand's already going to be down and he's going to be more coming in. And the main reason why hooking can just be so devastating and get someone coming into a press is because when you're coming in with a low hand like that, your shoulders can get forward, you're gonna crowd that space, and you're gonna bring them to the pad before they can even engage any of their power. You're just gonna push them straight out of their shoulder right off the bat. And a lot of times it's almost like the presser's pinning themselves in some ways. But I've been hearing that Dustin's hook is really, really coming along, and if he can match up with someone like Nathan, even with the weight disparity, that's gonna be really, really crazy. But again, I do think that on paper it should be a blowout for Nathan, and it should be He shouldn't drop any matches against Dustin. Match 7, Leif Sorensen versus Jordan Sill. I believe this one is right-handed. Yeah. Man, Jordan has always been one of those guys who's kind of like the gatekeeper for the top rankings in the U.S. Like, if you get through him, then you can usually get a shot at one of the big shows. So if Leif is able to do something, and again, though, Leif is going to be heavier. I think he's going to be 20 plus pounds heavier than Jordan, potentially even 40 pounds heavier. Because I think I saw somewhere that Jordan's maybe 205 right now. I might be wrong on that, but Leif is one of those guys who's just very statically strong. You don't feel like you're in too much danger in the setup, but then as soon as that go happens, one, he's faster than you think, but it's just like this, hydraulic, very smooth, power band that he moves through, and it just, every second that passes, it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger and more pressure. Just fundamentally, like the move that he does just really well, and I don't think that it's gonna get necessarily countered by Jordan. As a matter of fact, Jordan's pulling style is a little bit technically even weak against Leif's style. So it'll be really interesting to see if Jordan has enough containment to deal with him. I just think that it might be too much of a power disparity. But again, Jordan's one of those true elite pullers where, the weight and strength might not matter as much. And maybe the most talked about match of the night, match 8, Miles Hutton versus Dakota Shipton. These guys are some of everybody's favorite personalities in the sport, in the region. Miles is a great guy. He's wanting to help everybody. He's always there to talk if you need someone to talk to. Just a really good guy. And Dakota too, even though he's got a little bit more bravado about him, like he's just a very likable dude. Everyone gets along with. Really knowledgeable. I know he's under 4 years in the sport, but you wouldn't know it unless he told you. He speaks from a place of a lot of knowledge. You could tell he's put in the time to really learn the nuances and intricacies of the sport. Now, my honest thoughts on this are Miles is just going to be, despite Miles being also semi-new, like a little over a year, I think, at the time of the show. He is very experienced. He's competed a lot, both tournaments and super matches. And every time you pull him, he's noticeably stronger. Not just like, oh, he made a little improvement here, made a little improvement there. Just noticeably stronger. And probably, outside of Logan, maybe the biggest hand. His hand might be bigger than Logan's. I don't know. It's one of the only hands where you just grip up and you feel... you just feel in danger. You feel like there's nowhere to go. It's probably, from the hands that I've pulled, probably the most intimidating hand for sure. And I think that Miles is just kind of a prodigy, and I think that he's just going to be just a little bit out of reach for Dakota in the power department. But I do think Dakota has a lane. I think he has a way. Actually, he probably has 2 lanes. But the issue is getting to those lanes, and Miles is going to be hard, especially since he's doing more traditional training than he ever has before. I think it's going to be really hard to get him into either of those lanes. And I don't know what Miles knows or not, so I don't want to talk specifics. But I do see some, at least one window, maybe two, where Dakota could get in there and find success. But is it going to work more than once? Will it work at all? I guess we'll have to see. Then we're going to go into another break after match 8. And then the first up is going to be Clifton Erickson versus John Therrien. Clifton's been training for this for 11 months, I believe he said. And so it's probably going to be like right around a year. By the time we get into the match, or right at a year. And that's, that just goes to show the amount of respect he's giving this opponent. This guy's no joke. He is a prodigy. He came up, and he's right there at the very top. Went through Brandon Alessier. I'm not sure how to say his last name, but that guy has pretty much been known as one of the best North American arm wrestlers, period, regardless of weight, for a long time. Lots of respect, and beating him is a really big accomplishment. And the manner in which John beat him, I think, was really unexpected for everybody. He was in complete control. It was a really, really impressive win. And Clifton, he's kind of coming up on the rise. I think people are starting to really know his name on a national level. And this was the next logical step for him to really, really test himself. And obviously, on paper, again, John should be the heavy favorite, not drop a single match. But Clifton, man, I see firsthand, we message back and forth sometimes, and I get to see the feats of strength he puts up. And as far as gym lifts go, and how much you think that counts or correlates over to table pulling, there's not a lot of people moving more weight than Clifton. Even like in the super heavyweights, like these are some elite numbers that he's moving, and I'm really curious to see how it goes come super match time, because I have a feeling that people might be a little bit surprised. I have a lot of faith in Clifton. Man, just the amount of work he's put in, and always consistent. Hasn't been lazy about it in any aspect. And one thing I do want to note that I think is a mistake that Clifton's doing. He's a very honorable guy. He's a very it's really important for him to things be level in terms of a playing field, and that way, regardless of the results, no one can say, he doesn't like anything to be questioned. So he's actually dropping weight, even though he doesn't have to drop that much weight. I think they agreed upon like 220, but I think Clifton's trying to drop to 215 or even 210, mattering on how the weight falls off. I think that's a mistake. I really do. Like, I appreciate it, and as a man, that's fucking awesome. But that's, I don't think John needs, any handicaps here. So hopefully he decides to just kind of hold around that 220 mark. But I think it's important for him to feel like their weights are closer. So 10, Levi versus Logan, left-handed. This is a really interesting match for me because if I win my match versus Dalton, I feel like either one of these guys is maybe the next logical step for me in terms of my left-handed journey. So, I mean, Logan, without training, feels like a national level puller, very insanely strong. But Logan's been training the last couple months, like actual arm wrestling training, from what I hear. And some of the things from the last couple practices that he was at that I heard were pretty terrifying, coming from as good of a left-hand puller as I got the information from. Logan just has every tool in the world to be one of the best, and that's not an understatement or an overstatement. I mean, he's got a massive hand. He's got a wrist that's got to be over 9 inches. Like, it's just, it feels like gripping up with a tree. Like, that's you don't feel like you're holding on to a hand or an arm. You're holding on to a tree, and then when he grabs you, like, he's not even trying to grip low, but it feels like he is, just because his hand is that big and intimidating. But I don't want to say that means it's going to be an easy win for him. Levi, he's very, very good, very, very good, and he's another guy who's like coming up quick, like in terms of strength, and he surprised a lot of people. I would say that his pulling style is unorthodox. So my biggest concern for Logan is maybe getting frustrated or getting his head, because it's not going to feel like something he's used to from the guys that he pulls in his typical practice settings. He's going to feel very different. It's probably going to feel very uncomfortable. So hopefully, he just stays calm, stays with his game plan, and he has a good corner to help keep his head in the game, because the big thing here is going to be experience. Logan hasn't really pulled in 2 years in an actual match. So another one that I think there could be a potential for a upset, and because of Levi's experience, I want to say it's going to be 3-2 for Logan, but I do think Levi is going to get some wins in there. The second to last match, the co-main event, Joe Fehr versus Jordan Sill, left-handed. This is another one that's super interesting to me, because Joe's one of those guys. Technically, he's ranked second in the state, left-handed. And Jordan Sill, again, I think his left hand is ranked above his right hand currently, or maybe even overall. The last time I checked, I think he was ranked 5 in the U.S. Well, actually, I'm not sure if those are just North American or just U.S. But either way, it was ranked 5. And Joe, I think before last summer, said that he did table time on his left, but he didn't train it, or vice versa. But I think he's been training his left now. And his left before, for me, his left is actually stylistically the hardest matchup, so he feels the worst of anyone in the state. Like, I would rather pull Ben Brooks or Logan left-handed than him, even if they're technically ranked higher. Yeah, I think Joe's inside game on his left is really, really, really good. His ability to stay locked up and in his hammer and tight is crazy good. So for me, this is really exciting because it gives a good measuring stick on where I might fall. A little selfish there, but it is what it is. But again, on paper, Jordan should win this pretty easy, just because of his pedigree, his experience, how high he's ranked in comparison to Joe. But Joe's a guy who's just consistently gotten stronger. I think he's 3 years in the sport, maybe 4. But he can pull with people who are decade-long veterans, and he's gotten a lot of impressive wins. And it's just really cool to see kind of some of the newer generation in this armbender coming up and challenging some of these old guard guys like Jordan Sill. So the outcome of this match for me is very important. But I think that I'm probably going to have to go 3-1 on this. I think Joe might win round 1. But then I think Jordan may be able to just adjust and use his experience in order to do what he needs to do to get the win. So then there going to be one more 3-minute break, and we're going to go into the main event, Sandris versus RVJ. Neither of these guys need an introduction. I actually trained with Sandris for a year, or maybe even a little over a year, and so I do know him a little bit, and obviously we all see him on East vs. West. Very active. He's pulled everybody. And RVJ, he's kind of just been, toe in, toe out the last couple years. Not really sure if he wants to fully commit in, not sure if he wants to fully commit out. So we don't know what version of RVJ is showing up. But I have to be completely honest in this, and I think even if the very, very, very best version of RVJ showed up for this match, I don't think he would beat Sandris. Sandris has typically been heavier, one weight class up from RVJ, and he's been kind of losing weight and coming down to compete in some lighter weight classes. And, he's, again, I think he's just competed at a much higher level than RVJ ever has, in a more competitive setting than RVJ ever has. And again, even if this was the best version that we could get from RVJ, I don't think he's in the match at all. I think we're going to see it right off the bat in the setup. I don't think he's going to like the setup. You're going to see it on his face, and I think it's going to be flash pins unless Sandris is wanting to test different lanes and wanting to see, if he can pull through RVJ through a lane he shouldn't be able to. But I think this is Sandris is going to be in absolute full control. He's one of the best, period. And it's going to be really cool to see someone of his pedigree up there. But yeah, that's my thoughts for the armbender coming up. I'm going to try to do another one of these for my Bloody Valentine. If they put out a list for the competitors, for everyone who's competing that night, because I think that there's even some people who are still coming in who weren't even announced before. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, tell me what you think. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Just give me your thoughts below.